I'm your guest.
I'm your guest.
I am.
I know. Hello, I'm Tracy, and this is my husband.
I'm CJ Clark.
And today we're going to tell you about why you need an Advance Directive and why it's important. So, CJ, take it away. Why don't you tell us why a young, physically beautiful specimen, 32-year-old man needs an Advance Directive?
Well, it's quite sad to think about, but you could have some awful disaster happen and you're like in a coma or on life support in the hospital, and sort of this life-altering accident could happen. And at that point, if you filled out one of these Advance Directives, you could give your loved ones who are closest to you, who are trying to make decisions for you, a guide, a little bit of help, and lend your voice to the conversation, even if you're not able to physically do that at that time. So yeah.
I think it's also really helpful to know what your parents' wishes would be. So basically, if there was any kind of a situation where you were in a car accident, or if you had some kind of terminally ill disease, the next of kin, which would be either your spouse or your children, has to make really hard decisions for you and in a very stressful situations about how much treatment to receive, when to stop receiving treatment, if you can or can't have pain medication, because if you're really ill and on life support, they're not going to give you as much pain medication as it takes to make you comfortable. Their number one goal is to keep you alive. So there's a lot of nuance with that, and if you have no idea what somebody's wishes are about how long they want to be given treatment, it's incredibly hard to make that decision. So the most loving thing that you can do for your spouse and your kids is to kind of spell out the things that you want, what's important to you, and that makes that situation so much easier, because we're all gonna die. Hopefully it's a really long ways away, but at that point your spouse or your kids will have to make some hard decisions if you're in the hospital, and this really is so wonderful to lay it out for them so that they don't have to guess. So basically this document is saying, if you can't make decisions for yourself, who do you want to make decisions for you? And then kind of specifying about what are some of your priorities. So the first part is saying, I designate the following person to make healthcare decisions for me. We've each named ourselves, not ourselves, each other. So I said my husband, he said me, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. And then on the second page, it lets you pick a second and third alternative. So if you revoke the first person, which would never happen.
Or say we were both in a car accident.
Yeah, that would be bad. But then who would we want the backup person to be? And then a backup person to be. And then there's a few more little things in here, basically. And then part of this is my agent is authorized to make anatomical gifts, authorize an autopsy, or basically like if you kind of spell out organ donation here. So did you want to donate your organs?
I'll give them all to anyone who needs them.
Got it. There are a few different little nuances with that. Like, do you want your organs just for transplant, or are you okay with them using your organs or your body for research or education? So I think I prefer my organs not to be used for education and only for transplant or like helping therapy, like helping somebody else. But you're cool with all of it, right?
Yeah, I don't care. Trot me out naked, dead in front of a classroom of students.
Oh gosh.
At that point, I don't know if I care.
Yeah. Do you want to be cremated or buried?
I'm thinking I'd prefer to be buried.
I think I'd like to be buried too.
Okay.
I think it's more expensive.
Let's get buried together.
Yeah, we should definitely find a lot together.
Yeah. Cool.
And together in life and in death. Instructions for healthcare. This is like the whole beef of this document is what you want to have happen if you're not able to make decisions for yourself. Like, do you want your life prolonged or do you not? So this document, this is the regular Advance Directive, is kind of, it's a little bit too black and white. For me, I prefer this alternative document called the 5 Wishes, and this really holds your hand and takes you through step by step in a few different situations of why you might be in that situation. So in this section, this is kind of breaks it down into like a bigger document. Do you want to have life support treatment, or do you not want to have life support treatment? Or do you want to have it if it might help? And if you're close to death in a coma and not expected to wake up or recover, or if you have permanent and severe brain damage and not expected to recover. So this is, I think, a lot more helpful to kind of say specifically what. CJ and I have talked about it, and we both would like to be kept on life support. Well, I said 1 month, and he said 90 days. If there is uncertainty in my being able to regain consciousness, so if it's like looking like I don't have any brain, what is it? Function, but there might be like a percentage that I might be able to regain it. I'd like them to keep trying for a month, and CJ's saying 3 months. And then after that, if it doesn't look like we're going to regain brain function, we're going to have them remove life support.
I'm hoping that the
Pull
technology...
the cord is the bad way to say that.
I'm hoping the technology can advance in those 90 days to bring me back, if at all possible.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
Yes. And then upon my death, I give any needed organs. I crossed out education in that section just because I would feel weird about that. And then if you have like a primary care physician that you really love, you can name them here as being able to help make decisions for you.
I don't have one.
We don't love our primary cares. And then you're going to sign here. In terms of this document being actually legal, you need 2 witnesses to sign with you, and neither of them can be related to you or can be a beneficiary of any of your estate. So we're going to go hit up our neighbors later probably to sign for this. It's going to be an interesting conversation. But basically once you have the 2 of them signed, or you could have an ombudsman or like a notary. You kind of have to read it depending on what state you're in. But
is that a real word, ombudsman?
It is. I think it's, I don't know who they are.
Me either. Never heard of them.
Probate code. Google it and you can find them if you need to. And then basically you're going to make sure everybody that you've named on here has a copy of this document, knows and agrees that they're going to be the people to make decisions for you. And then like we use Kaiser, so we definitely give Kaiser a copy to scan into our files. So any last comments? Oh, the 5 Wishes has like a little bit more information about what music you want played at your funeral, or like if you want a funeral or not. So I think that's really cool. Again, I've worked in the hospital and I've seen, I guess like at least 50 people die, and it's always really traumatic, and the family's expected to like name a mortuary of where the body is supposed to go to right after their loved one died. So it's like a lot of decisions, I feel like, in a short amount of time after something really stressful just happened. So the more clear you can be about your wishes, it's such a gift to your family, so that they're not put in this awful position of like having to just guess if you'd want to be cremated or buried a few days after you died, or like stuff like that. So I think like my aunt, for example, told my cousin exactly what she wanted, and that was really amazing because that's such a huge burden off of them when they're in an awful situation. So we'll probably spell out a little bit more, like, is there music you want played?
I don't know. Gotta think that
We'll
through.
think about that. And then I'm definitely going to get copies of this for like my parents, and I want to like hear what their wishes are, or at least have them fill out the very basic statement.
So this Ash Wednesday, you can give them to everyone you know.
Wrap them up.
Yeah.
Well, we have to order them online, and they are like $4 or $5, but it's totally worth it to have a little bit more guidance, I think. So everyone's gonna get them for their birthdays this year. All right, well, thank you for joining us, and I hope that this encourages you to look into doing an advance directive. There's a nationwide initiative to have everybody fill out advanced care directives the day after tax day. So I think, is that April 15th or 16th? Because Benjamin Franklin said there's only 2 things in life that are certain: taxes and death. So the day after your taxes are due, fill out an advance directive. Thank you for joining us.
This is the Poppy Man signing off.
No, it's not.
Right?
Okay, I think that's
We
it.
did it, right?